what you're saying, Ben, is that at Mexico and resort courses, you want the guy who's got like 6 sex swings in his bedroom. And when you get to the Honda Classic, you want the guy who's doing it missionary.
That's right. Strokes gained, sex swings is also the pinnacle of golf stats that we haven't got there yet, but we're close. And once we get that, I think it'll be pretty much solved.
Mayo experience.
Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience. Cognizant Classic Best Bets. Gold, silver, bronze. We tried this show about a month ago, and it did really well. We went 4-2 with our picks, all at plus money, so a great winning week. Hopefully, we can continue to put that forward every single week with the best bets for the golf tournaments. If you want to go to LIV, you can do that. You want to go to the DP World Tour, you can make one of your bets from there as well. It does not matter as long as you have 3 of them, and we'll figure out which the best ones are throughout the course of the show. Smash the like while you're here. Download the podcast. Sub to Mayo Media Network and become a member right now. FantasyNational.com/Mayo. 20% off. We got a signature event. We got the Players. We got the Texas Run. Then we got the Masters. And that was a great time to get in on FantasyNational.com/Mayo in order to get that 20% off and use all the tools. It worked for me last week with Jake Knapp. Hopefully, we can go forward and actually hit some winners. First up, Rasa from both Stokastic.com and OddShopper.com. Sir, are you ready for this?
I think I am. I'm interested to see how this goes. I haven't done this format before, but it seems pretty cool. And the Cognizant Classic, what a name. So yeah, I'm ready. I like the Florida swing.
Byron at the Model Maniac, rotoballer.com. Did the name changes like screw with your Excel sheets?
No, because, when you're the Model Maniac, you have a value assigned to the tournament itself, not a name. No, I'm just kidding. It's been fun, but it has screwed with me on shows. So we'll definitely be doing the Cognizant Honda Classic this week and kind of winking and dinking our way through this thing.
All right, well, let's try to jump in. I gave out some outrights with Jeff on Monday. People can go check that out if they haven't already. And I'll have the full newsletter set of bets when I finalize everything after I do the show with Tambo on Wednesday. Sub to the newsletter. It's free. It's down in the description. The course preview is already up, and the initial bets are all written up in there as well. But I bet Fitzpatrick at 33, and his number kind of cratered in a lot of spots. I saw him down to 22, but there's still there are 30s still hanging out there on him, Byron. I don't actually have the most faith in Fitz. I actually kind of have more faith in Tom Kim this week, that I might cash that out and go with Tom Kim instead. Would you ever do that? Because then if Fitz wins, you feel like a moron.
I feel like you should feel like a moron just betting Fitz in general right now as an outright, but I'm just coming off the top rope. Yeah, it's early over in the central time zone, so ignore my nuances. Yeah, but I bet Tom Kim myself. So I'm rocking the Hawaiian-ish shirt for you, Pat. I'm trying to get back in the vibes that we had the Jake Knapp outright last week. You on the beach. If I had a bit more time, I would have had a beach background here and topless. But, I just went with the Hawaiian shirt in that regard. Tom Kim seems like he can just kind of pop and win this tournament. I have one myself. So Fitzy seems like one of these guys like Hideki was last 2 weeks ago, where if you just kind of keep betting him, hoping that he pops, he will at some point potentially, but nothing's really showing you that Fitz is going to play good golf this week outside of the fact that he won at Harbour Town when he was pretty much playing like similar golf leading up to it. So I don't know. It's all over the place, and we don't know who's going to play well this week at a course that we never know who's going to play well anyway.
Yeah, Ben, would you ever cash out a bet just to bet someone else at the same number? Could you deal with being wrong on that?
No. So, I'm working with, there's too many life factors where it's even if I won, the downside of missing a guy where it's I actually bet him and somehow I didn't end up betting him would be too much. So if I bet him, I'd rather lose the money than have it cash out and then somehow him win. That would be too much.
All right. Well, do you guys have any, so Byron, you're in on Tom Kim. Who are you in on so far this week, Ben?
So for what it's worth, I do have a Fitzy ticket. But I don't really like him. I went to Bez is going to win eventually. I don't know if it's going to be this week, but it's going to happen eventually. I still see some 60 to ones. Svensson at 55. Those were two of those kind of guys I've been betting that they're showing some signs and I don't want to give up just yet. Now, if Rory dusts the entire field, he dusts the entire field. You got to just kind of live with that. But to me, I'm sticking with two of my favorite guys in 2024, and Bez and Svensson.
I looked at that entire range, Byron, like 30 to 60. There must be like 55 guys between those two odds. He didn't know how to price anyone besides. They're like, we know that Rory's the favorite. We have no idea what to do with anything else. Like Ben Ann opened at 40 to 1. He's been bet down to 20 in some spots. Like, yeah, good. I mean, it's great if you got the 40. I just don't think that Ben Ann's going to win. So I didn't want to bet him at the 40 anyway. I feel like if he's ever going to win, it's going to be like 80 to 1 or something like that. And I kind of gave a look to some of the guys that Ben just mentioned, like Bez and Svensson, and I still might get there, like Luke List, Pavon. Like I can get Pavon at 60 right now. Like when I look at my stat rankings, he comes out pretty high. He's leading the FedEx Cup. I feel like most people don't even know that at this point. But it's this weird tournament where, A, I'm terrified of Rory dusting everyone and just showing up and playing like a Rory B- game this week ends up winning this tournament, although the field is much stronger than it normally is at PGA National. And then you have a bunch of these guys in like the 30s, like Lowry, and I bet Berger. Keith Mitchell's right there. Like, do we ride his form? I did. I ended up betting him. And then you have all these guys from 100 to 1 and beyond being like, yeah, this is the kind of tournament that these jamokes can win at the same time. Like Bobby Mack or Carson Young, like those type of guys that I ended up getting in on. So I just don't know what to do with my card this week. It's one of the most confusing weeks I can remember in a long time.
It's a high volatility tournament, so I've gone with the engage 8 principle. You mentioned the guys from 30 to 70. I've got 6 of them, and I've got 2 guys in the triple digits. So I'm just trying and compile the 8 dogs, and hopefully one of them gets the quarterback, and hope we can win it that way. Rory could be the quarterback and just completely just Patrick Mahomes us and just, slice and dice us. But it's a risk we're willing to take. I think if you're betting Rory every week, you're probably going to make less money than betting everyone against him. So I'm okay with that situation. Chris Kirk as a returning winner here. Benny On, I feel like he's been close a few times. He's played nicely in the past. He played nicely at the Sony. He's actually really good on these shorter courses. Daniel Berger. It's actually my 2-year anniversary when I started Rotoballer, and I wrote up Daniel Berger for the Honda 2 years ago. Had a 5-shot victory, 5-shot lead going into Sunday. And I'm like, damn, my first article's looking good. Nope. Danny Bergs finishes 4th somehow, hits it in the water in the middle of the monsoon. So that's a redemption story for me this week. Went with Mathieu Pavon. I think he's going to, however you say his name, going to play some good golf this week again. And then Tom Hoagie, horrible course history, but he's also just playing far too good right now to kind of pass up anything in the 60s for Tom Hoagie, was arguably one of the best iron players in this field this week.
Yeah, he was the one that was the most difficult for me to figure out, because even when I was trying to figure out my gold, silver, and bronze picks in terms of placements and top 10s and top 20s, that he just presents a lot of value this week. Like every stat points to him. Then you just look at the course history. It's like, I don't know what happens when this guy gets to this course in particular. Like he was able to be all right at the Players last year, and he ended up firing like one of the lowest rounds ever at Sawgrass, and that's not a place where he had historically played well. So maybe Hoagie's just one of those guys where you just back him, and you have to deal with the fact that he might be 7 over after 2 holes.
Yeah, he's an outright. It's fine. I was contemplating him as a top 20, which I won't be doing this week. I think that's too much like risk involved there compared to the course history we've seen from Hoagie. But at 66, it's fine. It's a little bit of change. It's one of the 7-8 guys I've bet. Let the other 7 guys do their thing if he completely implodes.
Ben, would you prefer to bet Rory to win or Rory to miss the cut?
Rory to miss, even though I'm the biggest Rory guy, Rory to miss, anyone to miss the cut in Florida, because it's a couple of shots that are 1 foot left and you're in actual water. It's not like, oh, you're just in a bad situation. And the high variance nature of that, if there are a couple water balls just randomly on Thursday or Friday, you can just miss. Anyone is in danger.
Well, I'm looking at the Fantasy National Simulator right now. Really likes Rory, but doesn't like Rory at 7 to 1, but does have him as a huge favorite in this field. And like even when you take a look at the simulator odds, it's Rory, then Eric Cole. Eric Cole somehow a value here this week, and then Carson Young and Tom Kim are the guys that pop up with just weird course fits here. So that's going to translate into my gold pick for the week. I'm just going to try to take it easy, try to make some money here. Plus 220 Carson Young to finish inside the top 30. He's gained on approach in 3 consecutive weeks, even at courses where I wouldn't have expected him to play all that well. I expect him to play a bit better in Mexico. And like when you see his splits, it's really strange. He plays really well at easy courses and really well at hard courses. If it's like average difficulty, he's got no answer for that. He plays pretty well with no wind and pretty well with a lot of wind, but not with like kind of a little bit of wind. He's a very peculiar player, but he is the type of long shot that I like to take at a course like this. He's extremely accurate off the tee. So listen, anyone can hit it into the water at any time, but trying to mitigate some of that risk in a top 30 bet off the tee, I think is going to be pretty key for him. So he can keep the ball dry. That's great. He was almost first round leader here last year. I actually did bet him as first round leader as well at 110 to 1. I'll have all of those in the newsletter as well, but the irons are hot. He keeps the ball in play off the tee, and he is one of these guys that we haven't seen it as much so far this year, Ben, but he went on a streak last summer of gaining on the greens in like 11 of 12 events. And it was nice to see him get back on track in Mexico with the flat stick last week, because when you go and do all of the research on this course, it's like course history doesn't really make a difference, because as you mentioned, like one foot to the left, 1 yard long, and your tournament is absolutely blown up, and that just happens. And no one's going to have that sort of consistency year over year at this course, or most of the Florida courses, where he's at least comfortable with playing here. I've seen that. That's positive. I like his skill set, and with the way that he gained on the greens last week, throughout the course of last year, and at this tournament last year, I think that you need to ride a hot putter, because when you see the leaderboard at the end, it's all the guys who gained 5 strokes putting.
No arguments for me. Carson Young is on my little list here when I jotted out. He's plus money for a top 40 as well, just to throw that out there. And I was over the field on him in DFS purposes. I'm with you. I have no pushback on Carson Young this week. He's not on my outright card, but he's a guy I really do expect him to get through this cut and play pretty well.
Byron, would you take Carson Young over Cam Young?
As a bet, I would, probably because of the odds and stuff. Right now, straight up, it's a 50-50 call in my opinion, just kind of based off what Cam's been up to the last little while. It's really early in the morning for me, and I'm taking some really hot takes here, but I would probably take Carson Young too. He's just playing such good golf right now, and he's consistent. I think Cam's been way over the map. And just a little fun fact on Carson Young, for a top 20, he's the 5th most profitable returner in that market. He's lost in every other market, outright top 5s, top 10s, but he's going to return you close to $500 over the last 12 months if you bet him top 20 to win 100. So I love where you guys are going there. I'll be betting him. I've got tons of bets that I'll be doing in my article, but he's not part of my 3, but he'll be part of, he'll be in the top 20 market there for me for sure.
So yeah, I'm easing into the gold picks. Plus 220 is nice. I mean, who wouldn't love to hit a plus? Think about if this was football. Like people same game parlay 4 legs together to get a plus 220 in a lot of situations. Probably not the best same game parlays if you're putting a 4-banger together for a plus 220, but for a top 30 for a consistent player, I'm on board with it. That's why it is my gold pick. Ben, do you have a gold pick?
Bez. It's just all Bez. Give me Bez for a top 20. You're getting 2.5 to 1 plus 250. I just love everything about it. I think this is a good course for him. The irons have been absolutely fantastic. We saw him nearly win. Now, there's always the caveat. He has to survive off the tee. It doesn't matter if you can't get the ball in play. And I do worry a little about him off the tee, but 3 straight top 30s coming into this. I just like the course. I like the game. I like the fit, and I like the number. I really think that Bez could almost be wheeled this week from outrights all the way to matchups, depending on the numbers you get. So might as well just fully coffin myself early here and just go Bez plus 250 for a top 20.
Byron, did you think it was going to be you who picked the first South African, not Ben?
The chances were good. I'd say they're probably almost better than what Bez has for a top 20, but I do have a Bez pick as my bronze pick, so we'll wait to get there. Not to get the cat out the bag, but I love him. I love him a lot this week. He's playing some good golf, man. He's playing some really good golf.
And we know he like Carson Young, he's probably an even more extreme example of someone who could, even if he doesn't have his A game tee to green, he always has the out that he might just gain 8 strokes putting.
Facts. He's a beast, man. He's a complete beast on the greens, and I'm kind of curious as to what's happened to his around the green play. I know that the more, the better your irons are, the less you can gain around the greens. But he's just in general not been that solid chipping and like bunkering himself around these courses lately. And he used to be insanely good around the greens. So I'm kind of curious as to if he's been working too much with his irons or what. But when he gets that part of his game figured out, boy, oh boy, is he going to be, he's going to be something to be feared at his like molasses pace of a golf swing and 290 yards down the fairway. But he also needs to work on his distance a little bit. I don't know. He just refuses to do that. But I love everything about him. I think he's leading the field in the last 24 rounds in approach this week, which is incredible. So let's go Bezzy.
Yeah, I shrunk it down to 12 rounds, Ben, on Fantasy National, and I looked at the two key buckets in proximity. Like, we know he's a really good wedge player, but 175 to 200, he's 5th in this field, and 15th from 200 plus, which I thought was just shocking that he's hitting his long irons. So, well, 3rd in approach overall. The only pushback I have against Bez and what makes me worry about him this week is, A, everyone loves Bez, myself included, and everyone on this panel included. The fairways have not been as airtight as they once were. Like, he went on a stretch, even last year, where he gained against the field, hitting fairways in 15 straight events, and it's been spotty the past, basically since the season started, basically since Shriners. Like, he dumped a bunch at Shriners, not hitting any fairways. Like, he barely hit any fairways in Phoenix. At the Farmers, that's one where you need a bit more distance and you really need to amp up what you're doing off the tee. But it hasn't been as automatic that he is just 290 down the fairway anymore. That if he starts spraying it a little bit, I do worry about him slightly.
That's the concern, definitely. I'm hoping that, here he can, distance is certainly not a prerequisite, that he can maybe tone it down and up it a little, because that everything that we're talking about that's going well for him is all irrelevant if he can't survive off the tee. You have to do that. I think he will, but that is the big red flag for sure.
Gold pick. Byron, let's hear it.
All right. So over the last 12 months, Scotty Scheffler is the only person in the world or on the PGA Tour that has gained you the most dollars back in every market, top 5, top 10, top 20. He's lost you so much outright. But the second best player to have bet in any market is Russell Henley, top 20. He's gained $774 in return if you try to win 100 every week. It's a clear-cut second just behind Scotty. No one else is nearly as close to him in any other market. It's incredible what he's been up to, and they continue to just give us plus money odds on a Russell Henley, who finishes inside the top 20 at about a 60% clip over the last 12 months. He's played fantastic golf at this golf course over the years. I mean, if you take a look at what Henley's been up to, it's just been, I think there's a top 24 in there. And yeah, it's been top 20, top 8, top 3 the last 3 times he's played at this golf course. So, I mean, we're getting great course history for Henley. He suits this course very well. His irons are pretty dialed from 125 to 200. He's the most accurate golfer in the field. You're just getting every single box checked. And we're getting plus money for a guy that's just been just absolutely killing it in that market. So I love Russell Henley in that department. What could absolutely go wrong with everything checking the boxes the way it has? But, such is life being on a show like this.
Yeah, and you get him back on Bermuda, where he actually has a chance to gain strokes putting for once.
Yeah, and he's really good, like, short game, too. He can scramble pretty well. So he's solid. He's just so solid, but he doesn't do anything better than like top 10s though. That's the thing. Like, he's just so comfortable in like 11th to 19th place. It's weird.
All right. So those are the gold picks. I like Russell Henley too. There's no way you'd ever bet him outright here at his number right now. Like, what would his number have to be, do you think, that you would bet him? 40, 45?
50? Yeah, I would say that's a fair number, because there's emotional pain involved with Russell Henley outrights. Like Rasa said, like, if you're cashing out, there's an emotional investment that has probably more weighting than actual financial, especially with Russell Henley. The guy could be like he was doing at the Sony again this year, winning the tournament, and then out of nowhere, it's just like he just lets you down. And at the Wyndham, like, he's the Red Hot Chili Peppers of the PGA Tour, because there's just scar tissue everywhere you look in his like track record, and it's just brutal stuff. So 50 to 1 or better, Russell Henley outrights, yeah.
So I have him clocked right now at plus 115 for a top 20, and that includes ties. So my market that I'm looking at right now, Ben, at Bet365, has ties included. So in my numbers, the plus 220 on Carson Young, even if 80 guys tie at T29, he's going to get the full 220 payout. Was that the market that you were looking at for Bez at plus 250, or was that without ties?
So that's always a good question with the dead heat rules and whatnot. I think you have to shop it, but the number I had was on FanDuel. So still, I think when you look at these numbers, that's the beautiful thing about golf. I mean, it's actually a blessing and a curse. Not to take the show on a tangent.
Go ahead.
But
Cam's not here. You need to do it.
Okay, well, I'll just say this. It's getting ridiculous. Like, Sunday, I'm watching the putt go in for a guy to win the trophy, and I go to Twitter, and 15 people are like, here's my top 35 bets that I already placed for like, the numbers are getting nuked earlier and earlier. It's crazy right now how much movement there is. Like, even on a Monday, I feel like I missed the boat on several guys this week, and I had to pass, Benny on being one of them, because not backing him now, and I didn't wake up at 3:30 in the morning on Monday to place that bet. It's just it's been outrageous lately.
Would you go?
It's crazy.
Yeah, I was going to say, Byron, because we talked about this. If people haven't checked out the show that Byron and I did last week, 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, it's up on Mayo Media Network. It's up on the pod feed about even things like dead heats, each ways, and what are the most profitable markets. Like, because I'm looking at Bez without ties for the top 20 at plus 200. Do you think that 50 cents is worth it to not take the ties?
No. I think that, like we said, when it gets into the plus money territory, you just take the ties. I think the rule of thumb is you take the first number of the plus and go times it by 3. So plus 100 would be 3, plus 200 would be 6. You got to get those extra 60 points for plus 200 in order to make it kind of be a rule of thumb for me. If you're going from plus 250 to plus 200, I would probably pull it at like plus 275. But, it's just, you're splitting hairs, and like we've seen, like that guy that tweeted at us on Twitter there, where they actually said, you got dead heated so bad that you never even got your money back. So we're going to just refund you the difference so that you can just get your money back on the bet, even though you finished inside the top 20. You never want to deal with that. So at a course like this, I think we could expect, some dead heats, obviously, and then I don't think you want to take that chance.
Yeah, it will be one of those things as well, where even on something like 18, it's a par 5. You expect guys to make birdie, but you could be Chris Kirk and hook one into the water right, and then all of a sudden you're making bogey just with so much water in play, Ben, that it would be devastating if your guy was T13 and then he makes bogey on the final hole, or he gets bear trapped and makes double bogey and he's well within inside the top 10. Then all of a sudden he's like T17 with 8 guys. Like, that would just be so frustrating.
It's the worst. Yeah, absolutely. I think Byron summed it up perfectly. Like, it's just a math equation. There is some risk tolerance in there. What are you looking to do as well? But yeah, I think just getting those numbers, capturing as much value as you can, and then making sure you understand what you're betting. That's always step one. Because a lot of people are like, wait a minute, my guy finished, I don't understand it. My guy finished 19th. And it's just like, well, yeah. And then the next guy's T29. So you have a slight problem there.
Well, Ben, do you want to kick us off on the silver picks?
Sure. So how crazy am I supposed to get here? Like, am I just getting like dangerously insane, or is that up to me?
Yeah, that is fully on you. I do the outright show, so I'm giving out 70 to 1s and 175 to 1s. And I'm sure that you are over at oddshopper.com as well. But for this show, I try to stick to top 30. So it's anywhere between it could be a head-to-head if that's really how strongly you feel. I have a head-to-head coming up.
Okay. I'm gonna take a somewhat aggressive stance. I'm gonna stick to the same formula though, because I really do like, cashing the outrights and getting the Twitter credit is awesome. But the way to sustain the bankroll is also putting in some top 20s, some head-to-head, some finishing position type things, which I think is really, really important. And I want to talk about Justin Lower is a guy that I've had on the radar. And of course, the time to put him on the card would have been last week. But you look at him, plus 450 for a top 20. That's the type of number that I can get involved with. Now, it does feel like chasing a little bit coming off a third in Mexico, but he gained across the board. He's gained on the irons in 3 straight, made 5 straight cuts. I think this guy's a pretty good player. I'm not sure how he'll react to a course like this. And again, could he get eaten alive off the tee? Maybe. But I actually like him. And he did gain an outrageous 9 strokes on the approach in 2022 here. He did nothing with it, but Justin Lower's game, he's got a lot of outs, and I do like that. He can get hot with the putter, he can get hot with the irons. And he's playing some good golf. Almost 5-1 on that number for a top 20. That is my silver pick.
Yeah, and even to see, like, he has very few top 10s in his career, but he does have one in Bermuda, Byron, which I would think that for some of these lower class players in the field, well, there's not a ton of water around Bermuda. It's, Bermuda greens. You're going to deal with a ton of wind, and it's not a super long course. It's much easier, obviously, than PGA National. But I would say that for a lot of these guys that we don't have a lot of experience with, that would be one of the tournaments to look at.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We've got so many Korn Ferry guys, so many guys that have been sitting outside the 125 of the FedEx that are playing this week, trying to get themselves into the mix. You're going to have to find some comp courses that aren't necessarily as compy as you'd like. And I think that's a great point there, Pat. Lois is a sneaky good long iron player too. I think people don't quite realize that. They think it's a short golf course. You're going to be hitting a lot of wedges. It's not necessarily the case yet. The majority of the shots come from 125 and out. So that's kind of the situation we're going to find ourselves in. And like Rasa said there, he's been balling out. He's got a few outs there, and the approach play and the putting seem to kind of bounce back in Mexico. So that's always the concern with Lauer, is whether or not he can ride super hot and then he can just absolutely boil over. But he's looking good right now, and I love that number.
So, and you got, what was the number, Ben?
Plus 450 for a top 20.
How about this? How about I'll do some odd shopper for you. I'll give you the plus 500 with ties.
Ooh,
at
baby.
365.
That's what it speaks to. Even better.
Just made you an extra 50 cents on every dollar that you put into this one. Byron,
yeah, I mean, the return.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say the return will be 0 for me, but I appreciate the gesture.
It always works. Byron.
Yeah, I will go and just kind of tangent off of Bezzy there real quick. I was probably going to make him my bronze, but since Raza made him his gold, I'll go with Bezzy as a top 40 minus 105 at bet 365 there, which pays ties in full. If you just take a look at Bezzy's splits over the last little while, I'm a little concerned to kind of go to him in that top 20, top 10, top 5 market. His best percentages of finishing inside each different category, 44% of the time he's finishing inside the top 40. That's his safe space. He's kind of like the Russell Henley situation, but just like a lighter South African version. It's top 40, or every now and then I think he had that Amex win where he came from way behind, hitting from holding out from the fairway and things like that. But it's just not repeatedly inside the top 20. And if you even take a look at his results here, it's been just outside the top 20 every single time, which scares me. I really wanted to bet Bezzy outright, bet him top 20, because he's playing much better than a top 40 candidate. But I just think his demeanor it's I'm okay with a top 40 kind of thing, which I know is a really weird thing to say, but his results over the last little while kind of show it out there. So love the course history, love the form. I mean, geez, the irons. I'd never expected this guy to be that good of an iron player. He's always a short game wizard. We always like to play him at these tough courses. And now all of a sudden he's just striping it. So love to see that. I really hope he does win at some point, and hopefully we are on him. But even if we're not, I think it'll be good to have a South African star back in the mix again.
Oh, you're not holding out hope that Henny Duplessis is going to win this week?
Well, he's not playing. Is he playing this week at the Cognizant?
No, he's playing at the SDC in South Africa.
Yeah, well, have fun winning that again, Henny. That's not going to change the world's perception on you, but you're going to have to get over here at some point and take care of business for us.
Okay, how didn't my guy Thirsty Lawrence get a PGA Tour card for playing on the DP World Tour last year? Didn't he win? He's won 4 times in the past 2 years. The guy can't get a card.
I don't know. I don't pay attention enough over there, Ben.
Yeah, I'm still living in the Xander Lombard age of South African golfers.
Hey,
that was more him in the.
I went to go bet a DP tournament. I think it was Oman. It was or the Bahrain Championship, and Xander Lombard was top 3 in odds. I was like, what year is this? What is happening?
Yeah, those were the days. And the guy with the mini putter. Who was that guy?
Jaco Van Ziel.
Okay. That guy. I missed that guy.
He didn't have the mini putter. He had the mallet putter.
Yeah. And Donnie van Tonder had the 3-foot long putter as well. The one that he would have to look more than Mark Hubbard's snail on every single putt. Playing with Donnie back in the day, it was just crazy to see what he would get up to. You'd shake his hand and you'd have he didn't wear gloves. He would just have grooves in his palm of his hands where the club would fit. He couldn't grip the club any different way because it would overlap in the crevices of his hand. So we've got some characters coming up and they are grinders. validated by the canyons in their hands when they practice. So we'll have to see. I think Donnie had the most potential, and he's kind of since getting married, things get a little crazy for you, you know.
Who is who's the Alistair Poltergeist, whatever his name is? Is he supposed to be actually good?
Aldrich Potgieter?
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, I mean, they let him out of the attic, I guess, and he's now in the Corn Ferry Tour just dominate. I mean, he's built like a tree trunk, right? He's just huge and feisty and not scared to win. So he's 19. He's not married. I don't think he's even got a girlfriend, which is the best situation for any South African golfer right now. And that's great to see him. He fits the South African, like the American PGA Tour narrative, like just hits it a million miles, right? A lot of these South Africans, some of them are just like Bezzy, where they kind of scrap it out on the DP World Tour and then can't quite convert over here.
All right, my silver pick, it's a pretty generic pick, but I'm not going to bet him outright, so I want to get some action on him somewhere. Shane Lowry, top 20, plus 145, with ties included. I know he does. It's not even that his form is bad right now. It's just dude legitimately cannot putt. But he has been able to putt at this course. He has been able to scramble at this course. And it's really tied, like, just looking at it right now. Like, I went through the model on the research show. And just to see him, like, even after the Mexico stats, when a lot of guys got a big bump up, you see Shane Lowry still rates out number 18 overall. And that's being 115th in the field in bogey avoidance and 109th in putting over the past 12 rounds. And those two things are pretty tightly correlated. Like, you're probably making a ton of putts if you're saving yourself a bunch of bogeys. If you're missing a bunch of putts, chances are you're making a bunch of bogeys. But just to look back at his tee to green game is still fine. He's come inside the top 5 each of the last 2 turns here. And it does seem like when we get to Florida, like this stretch of the calendar on the PGA Tour seems to be Lowry's best. From the Honda basically through the Heritage. I know he doesn't have any wins, but these style of courses, Ben, I think fit him better than anything on the West Coast.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And he's shown obviously the ability not just here, but at Sawgrass. And the good thing about Shane Lowry is a lot of weird stuff happens during the tournament, and he's suited for all of it. If it gets windy, if it gets nasty, he can grind in all different conditions. You don't know what you're going to get with the flat stick, of course, but there are worse things to be worried about than that. So Shane Lowry is just a player. I rarely bet him, but at the same time, I feel like he's a pretty solid return on investment more often than not when you're taking pretty steady markets with him.
The other thing, I was going to say, the only elements that he can't play in when he's the only one who has to play a hole in a monsoon, and then he can't win, Byron.
You literally took the words out of my mouth. I was about to say that, and it's like, what are the odds of that ever happening? I would be so salty with the golfing gods had that happened to me. I could not believe it. And I think I had Berger in that same situation, because then Berger went for the green from the middle of the field. I had him in one and dones, and then he just hit it in the water. It was just a disaster. Those two guys getting absolutely burnt. Seb Striker, sacrificed the Diet Coke gods there. But some other thing I want to just mention before we get into other guys is we're going to be now shifting from the West Coast to the East Coast, and we're going to have totally different golf. There's definitely guys that have profiles that suit this kind of golf better than the West Coast POA. And the recent form numbers, the last 24 rounds, are all going to be really bad for some of these guys, which you can really take an opportunity on and just kind of remember that they've played well around, Florida swamps and not so well on the West Coast. So that's a really nice avenue to go down with Shane Lowry. I was kind of eyeing him out against Sungjae, who's not playing good golf at all right now in a matchup, but I couldn't quite get there just because I don't know. He's not playing good until we see him this week. So maybe I'll jump onto him a little bit later. In the Florida swing.
See, that's one of the reasons why I don't think that I'm going to cash out Fitz. That Fitz, like Lowry, it does feel like when we get to the East Coast of America versus the West Coast, that he just plays a lot better. Like these courses suit him better.
Yeah. And I think typically he's been more accurate in the past though. So now he's got this beefed up driver, which I don't know how much it helps him at this kind of a course. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but it's interesting. He's like a different golfer this year, though. That's the thing. I mean, it's weird.
Yeah. I just his numbers are just horrible, and he doesn't seem like he has it in any sort of round. And just even some of the putts that he's missing, it's like he usually makes those ones. Maybe just getting back. I always like Fitz better on harder courses. Like because people always think like before he added the extra distance and won the U.S. Open, it was like, oh yeah, just take him at every accuracy type of course. He's just going to hit every fairway. But he never played well at Harbour Town until he got the extra distance, which is just mind-boggling.
It makes no sense. And another thing I really want to we're going to hit the golden age of golf stats when we can filter on putts made for par, putts made for birdie, or putts made for bogey. Because I think Shane Lowry and Matthew Fitzpatrick would be some elite putters if we could filter on putts made for par. I just feel like there's a mental capacity to that. And just being a scrappy Europeaner, they just like par putts more than they do birdie putts. And we're going to have a lot more par putts at this golf course than we've seen over the last little while.
Well, maybe there's something engaging about it. Now, this is just all mental and purely anecdotal, Ben. But there are some players, like we mentioned, like Lowry, like give him a bit of elements and like he can kind of withstand that I do find a lot of the Euro players, and weirdly, like there's even some guys that I play with, like scratch guys, that there's certain ones where if you have like pristine conditions, they are going to dummy any course. You throw a little bit of wind at them and they like their calibration gets off. Where there's another guy, he's not quite scratch, but he's going to shoot like 74, 75 most of the time that we're out. But if you start introducing elements, somehow he gets better. Like he enjoys the thrill of like trying to shape his shots in the wind. Like it just something clicks for him. And it feels like Fitzpatrick and Lowry fall into that mold.
I think there's something to that. I think generally, just making generalizations, there's a little more art than science in the European, because they're dealing with a lot of weird stuff. And I've always had that mentality with the Korn Ferry Tour as well. Like those guys, their mentality is to score. And then you get to something like Honda, and if you do that, it's just not going to work. You can't go for 25 under style. And there's an element to being able to say, like, I'm going to minimize my risk. I will take my birdies when I get them. But as Byron was saying, I think it's spot on about like, you know what? I'll take 6 feet for par, and that's just as good as 6 feet for birdie on a different course, because I'm gaining the same amount of strokes against the field on these holes.
So what you're saying, Ben, is that at Mexico and resort courses, you want the guy who's got like 6 sex swings in his bedroom. And when you get to the Honda Classic, you want the guy who's doing it missionary.
That's right. Strokes gained, sex swings is also the pinnacle of golf stats that we haven't got there yet, but we're close. And once we get that, I think it'll be pretty much solved.
Byron,
Yeah,
just to
that's not the golden age. That's the platinum age of
that's
golf
correct.
stats.
Well, I mean, you talked about like the strokes data for like par putts, birdie putts, and bogey putts. I think we're gonna have that soon at Fantasy National. Like that, we have this like shot level stuff that we're working on, but trying to figure out how to put into a table. That's actually a really good one. I'll try to work on that.
That would be awesome. I would put a sex swing in the back of my studio, yeah, if that happened, Pat.
Bronze picks for the week. Actually, no, before we get to that, I want to kind of dig more in on this Florida versus West Coast. Byron, did you find guys that did have significant splits? Because one that stuck out immediately to me was Ben Griffin, who just plays better in Florida.
Yeah, there's just guys like that. I don't really have it off the top of my head. I think if you just go and look at like course history, filter on a few guys that are like typically good around these kind of swampy venues. For instance, maybe like an Adam Svensson, a Chris Kirk, Sungjae Im, guys that are very good off the tee, I think typically thrive a bit better at these kind of courses because of the risk off the tee. Maybe that's just a little overgeneralization there. But if you just go filter on like TPC Sawgrass, the Valero, the Valspar, this course, you can see there's guys that are just popping up nonstop, and that's the kind of golfers that you're kind of looking for. Rory in particular being one of them.
What do you make of Minwoo this week, Ben?
Same thing I make of him every week. I can't tell if he's wildly overpriced or the best bargain in the field. Now, if you want to talk about, okay, don't destroy yourself off the tee, we got that box checked. Now, the rest of the game, I don't really know. I don't have a good feel with him. I never do, though, so he rarely makes my card, and he didn't this week either.
Byron, I comped him to Bryson when Bryson went on his weird run where he couldn't chip and couldn't hit an iron, yet was still winning tournaments, basically because he led the field in driving and led the field in putting. Like, that feels right now against these stronger fields, and this one's not as strong, but versus some of the DP events or like the Aussie Open type thing that Minwoo can win, that it feels like that's what he needs to do. That's his path.
Yeah, I think we saw that at the Charles Schwab where I was like, he's not going to be playing well at all here. And then he just he just overcut the corners of the dog legs and just putted lights out and chipped. He was chipping when guys were hitting approach shots, so that's just the difference there. I don't know if that's going to apply as much this week. I'm also on the side of, I think Ben might be feeling is like, I think he's overhyped a little bit. Like the whole let him cook situation. He hasn't finished inside the top 20 yet this year. I mean, he's been cooking like White Castle sliders so far. It's like, give us something else to cook. We need some gourmet stuff from you, Minwoo, if you're going to be pushing this narrative. And it hasn't been with the putter. Maybe he hasn't played too much on Poa. And that's the concern I have in fading him this week is we've seen him putt very nicely at the Players and things like that. So maybe he's a bit more adapt to these East Coast courses than the West Coast.
That was kind of the thing with me and Ryan Fox too, because I love Ryan Fox. Like the guy just kind of pops out of nowhere and wins. We know how good he can be off the tee, but it does seem like Poa has been his kryptonite so far, and he's putted really well on Bermuda throughout. We don't have a huge sample of it, obviously, but everything we've seen when he gets to Florida, dude just makes putts all of a sudden.
Yeah. It's weird. Golfers are psychos, man. They are just psychos, and it doesn't make sense, yet we try and win money off of them too.
Last two guys I wanted to bring up to you, Ben, just to see where you're at with them. Corey Connors being one, because on paper, this should be the perfect course for him. He plays well at difficult venues. He keeps the ball in play. It's just he's so bad putting normally that when you get to a place where he actually puts himself out of tournaments and doesn't just like churn out a T17 or something, like it's really alarming. And this is one of those courses. And the other one is EVR, who just is kind of playing great golf, but I think we all have this thing in the back of our minds where, oh my God, there's water, and EVR is going to hit into the middle of it every time.
Yeah, that's in the back and front of my mind with him. So Connors is tougher because he does do a lot of things that I want. I think I just said, okay, I'm just gonna go with Svensson and just pretend that Connors like doesn't exist. The thing about Connors that's tricky, and I dealt with this on a personal level with Griot for half a decade. He combines awful putting with awful around the green game, and that is so hard to overcome. Like at least Benny on when he has his struggles, he was always a really good around the green player, and you can mask it. Corey Connors can't do either right now, and that's so difficult to overcome, even if you're striping it.
That was the weird Luke List thing for a really long time too, Byron. That like he would be able to get himself out of jams because he was so good around the green, and now he like sucks around the green somehow.
Yeah, none of it makes sense.
It doesn't make sense. Do you think there's something to these guys that like when they try and work on a different part of their game, they just spend less time on the other part that was once good that they were like giving attention to all the time?
I mean, you're the guy that is the best of golf here. You're the one who came to America to play golf. You tell us.
I don't know. I practiced for like 12 hours a day and I still couldn't hit my irons. So like it doesn't make sense to me how these guys improve in these departments, but I think that's probably the case, right? I think maybe they adopt like a thought swing or something, and it can like roll over into the other areas of their game. I'm not entirely sure what's going on. Like I said, the psychos, and we bet on them, but it's interesting.
Well, with the way that List has been putting so far this year, it's not that it's super consistent. Like, I mean, when he won at Sanderson Farm, he gained 6 strokes, and then he goes to Sony and loses 6 strokes over the course of 4 rounds. So it's still like widely variant, but at least he has these high peaks all of a sudden, which you would need to win tournaments. Like he gained almost 7 strokes at Riv when he came in second. So he weirdly became a guy that I always really liked at hard courses because he'd be able to chip it to 2 feet and make the 2-foot putt. We weren't relying on him to make a bunch of birdies from 15 feet. He was just able to grind it out in a lot of these situations. Like when he came inside the top 10 at Bethpage during the PGA Championship, like, yeah, on paper, that's a great course for Luke List. He can bomb it wherever he wants. He can hit his irons pretty well, but he can always scramble himself out of a lot of jams, and everyone else is making a lot of bogeys at the same time, so it can balance itself out in that way. Now, with his profile, where the driver has been less than effective than it's ever been in his career, the irons have been better, but he's somehow gaining over 5 strokes every 4 tournaments on the greens, that maybe easy courses are where we want Luke List now.
Rasa?
I was just going to say, yeah, I think that makes sense to whatever you said. It is amazing though. I think Norin also is like that, where I had a vision of where he would thrive, and now I realize that it's not what I once thought. Some of these guys' games, when they translate, it's not just that their strokes gain data changes, it's their course fit that changes. And courses that I would have ruled them out at initially actually become favorable buy spots.
Yeah, Noren's a tricky one this week because I know that people will like him because of the history here. We know he's great with his wedges. He's going to keep the ball in play, Byron. And he had the second at Bermuda, but it just feels like he's a pure form player. Like I would take him as a top 40 here, but I don't think I would sniff anything above that right now because he can't get all facets of his game going the right way.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy as well. These guys are just all, this is the course, this is the venue, this is the event that we're going to have to sift through and find golfers like this. That Alex Noren, he's great on these comp courses that I have in the Florida side. He suits this kind of a layout. He's played nicely the last little while. I mean, but I think with Alex Noren, whenever things seem to be checking all the boxes, I think I was heavily invested in him at Southwind or Southern Hills, for the PGA Championship. And then just took like 3 shots out of a fairway bunker. You know, like that's just the stuff you're going to have to deal with Alex Noren with. And, you know, I don't think he's going to beat you. I just think you're not going to be on him in that regard.
Well, there was one guy that I was going to swing back to. He's not going to be my bronze pick this week because I have a live matchup for my bronze pick this week. But I weirdly really like Taylor Pendrith this week because I feel like his odds just got crushed because apparently I wasn't around for the DraftKings discourse last week, Ben, but it seemed like everyone loved Pendrith. But he is he's going to have... Like, he plays Torrey Pines really well, and there are some long courses where his distance is going to be a big factor, but you look at most of his top finishes, they're on short Bermuda courses. Sony, Players, Bermuda, like, these are the courses where he ends up inside the top 10.
Yeah, I mean, Pendrith winning last week would have actually broke Twitter because me and everyone else had him on the card, and he wasn't even close, but I get it. And there's always an element, I mean, it's more in a game theory for DFS, of people overreact to 2 bad rounds. Always. Like that's just, I think, a fact in general. And I like the hard reset when you're not playing your best golf. So yeah, I would never push back. All the Canadians there, I wouldn't be stunned to see one of them really compete because they all profile pretty well here.
Well, I saw that Michael Gliglick qualified for the field on like the Tuesday playoff. So he was a guy that like, I think we bet, no, that was Roger Sloan that we bet, like everyone bet to win Wyndham that year when Henley actually blew it at the same time too. And Sloan made the playoff and then lost to Kisner. Stupid Roger Sloan. Bronze picks. I have Mito Pereira over Patrick Reed minus 115 for Live Jeddah Ben.
I forgot Mito existed. Good for Chile. Hope he wins for you. Jeddah, they're in. Okay. I'm not plugged in, as you can tell, to what's going on with Liv. I hope Peter Uline's in the field, but
he is.
Fire up Mito. Yeah, well, there's your winner, so that's easy. And hopefully Mito comes second.
Well, I did bet Mito to win at 35-1, and I bet Brooks at 10-1. He's won every time they've been to Live Jeddah. He wins in a playoff every single time. He beat Uline in a playoff last year. He beat Gooch in a playoff last year. Byron, did you see Gooch's comments about Rory and the Masters?
Oh my God, the asterisks. I mean, isn't this guy? He's arguably the most comedic individual we've ever come across in golf, and I don't think he even knows it. It's just he's sipping on Mai Tais, excuse me, kind of just sending off tweets that don't make any sense. And was this an actual, like, you actually opened his mouth to say this time? It wasn't a tweet?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, there's an asterisk next to Rory's name if he wins the Masters, Ben, because all the best players aren't there.
Yeah, I'll get right on. You don't have to worry about Rory winning the Masters as long as I keep picking him there for the 10th straight year. But yeah, Taylor Gooch, not my cup of tea. And those comments didn't help his cause, that's for sure.
Well, the way that I look at Patrick Reed, he just hasn't been playing a lot of golf. I like Mito anyway. He had a nice performance in Oman last week, but Reed has only played Live so far, which I thought was somewhat surprising because usually he gets in an Asian Tour event or whatever it is to keep the game sharp. But he was bad in Mexico. He was bad in Vegas. He hasn't played particularly well in these Jeddah events in Live so far during Live's 2-year period of existing, and Mito has. And Mito probably should have won last week and kind of gagged it. Didn't gag it in the final round, but Ortiz just went and won it. So minus 115 seems like a really good number to bet against Patrick Reed at this point. Just remind me, Ben, when we do the DraftKings pick show for the Masters, that to take Patrick Reed, because he'll just play well.
Yeah. I will remind you of that. And I might again, I don't know anything about Liv right now. I think I'm going to put a little wager on that and tail you there. Get some action. I like that.
Bronze pick, Byron.
You got to go all the way to like August to see anything good from Patrick Reed on a Liv event. Like, what has gone on? He's just spending too much. I love how these guys go over there to like spend more time with their family. And I think Reed is probably arguably on the opposite side of the spectrum there, because he's had to spend like way more time with Justine. And that's arguably the reason he's not quite playing the golf he could be. But yeah, RIP to Patrick Reed there. I think that's a great bet, Pat, especially with Mito playing as good as he is right now. Let's chat about someone else that's also playing really good, and his name's Eric Cole for my bronze bet. Top 20, plus 140. The guy's just been a top 20 machine over the last few weeks. And I think not a lot of people will realize that since 2024 has begun, Eric Cole's starting to drive the golf ball not badly, which has always been his problem. And he's trending quite nicely. The last 24 rounds, I think Cole's looking 38th in this field in strokes gained off the tee, which is top quarter of the field or so. So give me that, which was the only real issue with his game, was not being able to get off the tee. And now we go back to a venue that he gained, I think, in all 4 rounds off the tee last year when he finished second. Great course history. The iron play is immaculate. The short game is classy. Can I do like a weird bet where I say, okay, if I'm going to bet $20 on Eric Cole, I'm going to bet 15 on the top 20 at plus 140, and then 5 on his top 5 at plus 550 or plus 600, wherever you can, because he's, in my opinion, he's never going to win a tournament. He just doesn't have it in him, but he's going to finish inside the top 5 and the top 20 quite a lot. And I want to really take advantage of him floating and flirting with the lead and getting into that top 5 there, which he's done repeatedly.
Just bet all your money on him to win, then cash him out on the front 9 on Sunday.
That's probably not a bad strategy either. I think there's an all cash out list and he's definitely on it. I would definitely put him in the mix there. Great point. Great point, Pat.
For years, because I bet on him so many times. I know that he won. Geez, how many wins does he have? 2 or 3? Kevin Kisner was the king of this. He would just be winning tournaments on Sunday, all throughout Florida, and Jason Day would come run him down, or Mark Leishman would just anyone who was in the field would just run him down over the final 4 holes, and you'd be sitting there with your 80-1 Kevin Kisner ticket pen and being like, "Oh, this is great." It's like, "Oh, it's gone," just like that.
Yeah, simpler times. Yeah, Kisner 5,100 in the DFS streets this week. Oof.
It's a tough scene. Bronze pick from you.
Off this. Yeah, I'm keeping it very simple. I missed the number on Benny On, but I do like the spot for him. I'm not completely sold on JT Poston here. Minus 110 in a head-to-head. I'll take Benny On there. It's really nothing too extreme. I just think On is poised to play really well. That's one of the few markets that didn't get nuked. I'll buy on him. Poston, he's never really thrived at this course. His game's a little erratic. I think he could play his way out of it. So give me Benny On over JT this week. I
could see Benny On missing the cut.
Yeah, so could I, but I still might cash this. So it could be a +7, +9 head-to-head winner, and I'll take that.
All right. Those are the full gold, silver, and bronze picks. I did want to give one guy a very special mention just because I was digging into him because he gained 7 strokes off the tee last year. And I keep thinking his last name is Stranger, but it's not. It's Stanger. But it'd just be way more hilarious. Yeah, Jimmy Stanger. Apparently he's from Tampa. So he's probably pretty familiar with these greens. And if he just continues to mash the ball and not hit it in the water, he's 300-1. That you can probably what are his top 40 odds? Let me take a look at this for a second. He was a name that popped to my mind. Do you have any info on this guy, Byron?
Yeah, I actually, I did that Corn Ferry Tour 44, RIP Moronk. And he was the guy I actually took out of the article and quote tweeted it because he just had tons and tons of distance off the tee and plays well on the easy courses. Did he play well last year, Pat?
No.
I'm not quite sure. Well, I guess gaining that amount off the tee, surely, right?
Yeah, let's see. Honda, he's never played this before.
Oh, okay. Because yeah, he would have. So he gained 7 at Mexico off the tee.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes tons of sense. You know, I mean, the guy just launches it. So it's fun because we're going to be betting guys that played well last week on a course that was completely opposite. You know, it's like totally different this week.
Yeah, but we've just seen form right through. Like, it just, I am kind of pro that even if the course matches don't go, like we saw this with Sam Ryder for years, that he would just show up to like 3 completely separate locales, nothing to do with each other, different distances, different green types. But once he got hot, he was just kind of hot for a month and he would go away for 10 months. Maybe this guy is kind of the same. He was 14th at the Amex too, and it's like 3 starts ago.
Yeah.
And
there's guys out there, you know, Sam Ryder's been, I think he led the PGA Tour in putting at one for a period of time. Only Victor Hovland had better strokes gained approach last year on Sam Ryder. Like he was outgaining everyone. He's like a master of all trades, but never 2 at the same time. So just a little fun nugget on Sam Ryder there. I mean, the guy's just, I think next up he's going to become the best driver in the world. So that's next up on his bucket list. We'll see what he can do. But there's guys that just play well everywhere. I don't know.
All right, that will do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. Playing the Pat Mayo Experience DraftKings Listeners League. That's down in the description. The newsletter, fantasynational.com/Mayo to get yourself that 20% off. Rasa, what's going on at Odd Shopper this week?
Yeah, of course, just keeping it busy, obviously, with college basketball, golf, NBA, just so many markets, so many opportunities. So, you know, with more states coming online, I know North Carolina is next here in the States. It's very exciting. If you're looking for some betting tips, if you're looking to really refine a process, come check us out, Odd Shopper YouTube. Fun time. Hopefully you can cash some tickets this week.
Byron at The Model Maniac on the X machine, rotoballer.com. When does the $100 column come out?
I'll be jumping on that after the show, making sure we get Breaking 100 out there for everybody. It is a free article, but if you're looking to get involved with any premium stuff, Code Maniac gets you into the back behind there. We've got showdown stuff. We've got, you know, all the jazz that you can wish for. I've got a PJ Stat Buffet that just takes top 20 screenshots of my model and just plugs them in like crazy, you know, so you can use whatever you want from there to your advantage. We got tons of fun stuff over at Rotoballer, and I think it's going to be a fun week again for us after me and Joe Idoni both hit an old nap last week along with you, Pat. So good job on that, man. That was a fun sweat.
Yeah, you too. I mean, it wasn't super fun. It was fun at the very end. It wasn't fun throughout the course of Sunday, I'll tell you that. But you can follow me at the PME, all of my final bets and final write-up after the show with Tambo on Wednesday in the free newsletter. Subscribe to that down in the description right now, okay? I'm Pat Mayo. Smash a like on the way out, and I will see you next time.
Mayo Experience! Experience!